How does a nation, once a beacon of liberty, crumble from within? In the summer of 1940, France, reeling from a catastrophic military defeat, provided a harrowing answer. The fall was not merely a loss on the battlefield, it was a profound and deliberate surrender of sovereignty and soul, formalized by the stroke of a pen on the 22nd of June, 1940. The armistice signed on that day marked the formal capitulation of France to Nazi Germany during the Second World War, a consequence of the crippling and swift German victory in the Battle of France. As the French military disintegrated, the government, now under the leadership of a new prime minister, Marshal Philippe Pétain, broadcast its desire to negotiate an end to the fighting. For Adolf Hitler, this was more than a military triumph. It was an opportunity for a meticulously staged act of historical vengeance. He decreed that the signing ceremony would take place in the very same location and inside the very same railway carriage where Germany had been forced to accept the armistice that ended the First World War. This calculated act of humiliation was designed to erase a national shame and impose it squarely upon the French, turning a symbol of their past glory into an emblem of their present subjugation. The terms of the agreement, signed between the representatives of Nazi Germany and the French Third Republic, were as brutal as the symbolism of its setting. The document carved France into pieces, creating a fractured and subservient nation. The country was divided into two principal zones, each with a starkly different reality. The northern and western parts of France, a vast territory that included the nation's heart, Paris, were to be directly occupied by German forces. This occupied zone also encompassed the entire Atlantic coast, a region of immense strategic value to Germany, providing its navy with critical access to the Atlantic Ocean for its war against Britain. The remainder of the country, constituting the southeastern 2/5, was designated as the unoccupied zone, often referred to as the Free Zone. This territory, however, was free in name only. It was to be governed by a new French regime, a collaborationist government led by the very man who had sought the armistice, Philippe Pétain. This government would soon become known as the Vichy regime. The armistice's conditions went far beyond territorial division. They were designed to neuter France as a military power, demanding that its armed forces be drastically reduced to a shadow of their former strength. Furthermore, its military equipment and weaponry were to be largely seized or destroyed by the Germans, ensuring that no meaningful resistance could be mounted. Compounding the material and military losses was a deep economic wound. France was compelled to bear the full financial costs of its own occupation, funding the very army that now controlled its lands and people. Perhaps most sinister of all was Article 19 of the Franco-German Armistice, a clause that stripped away the last vestiges of French sovereignty and moral standing. It required the French state to surrender to German authorities any German national found on French territory, effectively turning France into an extension of the Nazi security apparatus and a trap for the thousands of refugees who had fled there seeking safety from persecution. The political fallout from this military and moral collapse was immediate and transformative. The Vichy regime, which would govern France from July of 1940 until its liberation in August of 1944, was born directly from this defeat. It officially succeeded the Third Republic, which had governed France for decades. The transition was formalized on 10th of July 1940, when the French National Assembly convened in the spa town of Vichy. In a moment of profound national crisis, the assembled representatives voted to grant extraordinary and absolute power to Marshal Pétain, who held the title of President of the Council. This vote, enshrined in the constitutional law of 1940, was not a minor adjustment, but a complete dismantling of the existing political order. With a decisive result of 569 votes in favor to a mere 80 against, with 20 abstentions, the National Assembly effectively voted itself out of existence, bringing the era of the Third Republic to an ignominious end. The law gave all government powers to Philippe Pétain and explicitly authorized him to take any and all measures necessary to write a new constitution, placing the entire future of the French state in the hands of one man. Wasting no time, Pétain moved to consolidate his newfound authority. The very next day, he issued Constitutional Act No. 2, a decree that cemented his absolute control. This act granted him the full spectrum of governmental powers, including the unilateral authority to appoint and dismiss ministers, who are now responsible only to him, not to any legislative body. It also gave him the power to exercise legislative authority directly through the Council of Ministers, bypassing any form of democratic process. The act explicitly abrogated all provisions of the constitutional laws of 1875 that were deemed incompatible with his new, centralized power. The Republic was dead, replaced by an authoritarian state. Officially, this new government, which called itself the French state, or État français, maintained a position of neutrality in the ongoing war.
In practice, however, it actively collaborated with the Nazis. This cooperation extended to some degree into the darkest corners of Nazi ideology, including their racial policies. The ideological shift was made plain for all to see, as the regime discarded the cherished Republican slogan of liberty, equality, fraternity. In its place, a new, more authoritarian motto was promoted: work, family, fatherland. The government established its seat of power in Vichy, located within the Unoccupied zone, from which it administered its portion of the fractured nation. Yet, even in this new reality, a ghost of the past remained.
Paris, though under the heel of German occupation, was still considered the official capital, a city to which Pétain always intended to return the government if and when that ever became possible. A distant hope in a nation now defined by division, defeat, and collaboration. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment with your thoughts or next video ideas.